Giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders, a great millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and wherever you may be, and wherever you may be, to you I say, Shalom and Shalom. All right, here we are with another Sedition Among Men. So if you've been paying attention, or, even, to a minute level, to Cuba. All right, you have this headline here: Cuban protesters ransack communist office as energy crisis deepens. Because we've been hearing about how they've been feeling it, which these Cubans are, these so-called Cuban people are the tribe of Manessa. All right, and so you've been hearing about how they are feeling it over there. I think we mentioned maybe a couple weeks back. Couldn't be too far between a couple weeks, maybe a month. However far, it wasn't too long. I can't really remember. But how they were saying that they only had energy, only had power for a certain amount of hours out of the day. Okay, because of what was going on over there. And then with this, which that's kind of hitting many places, even in Africa. But on point with this, the closing of the Strait of Hormuz is also affecting other places like this. All right, so yeah, the Cuban protesters ransack communist office as energy crisis deepens. Okay, protesters in Cuba have ransacked the Communist Party building following a rally over steep food prices and persistent power cuts in a rare show of public dissent. And this is what is coming to Babylon the Great. Okay, and I mentioned this many times before, probably a couple years back. I used to say this all the time. All right, all the different things you see happening around the world are all going to happen in Babylon the Great, but all at once. But I also have to pause right here, so y'all give me a moment. All right, so protesters in Cuba have ransacked a Communist Party building following a rally over steep food prices and persistent power cuts in a rare show of public dissent. 5 people were arrested after a small group vandalized the officers in the central city of Moran, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I'm just going to read it how I see it. Overnight, they'll probably pronounce it maybe. Overnight into Saturday, Cuba's Interior Ministry minute said discontent among Cubans has been mounting as the island is buffeted by rolling blackouts and shortages of food. All right, these are all signs of the times we in. Okay, but the Lord is he's putting a tight squeeze on the planet Earth. Okay, so they have rolling blackouts, shortages of food. Look, shortages of food, fuel, and medicine, exacerbated by a prolonged U.S. oil blockade. And once again, as I mentioned before, these Cubans are the tribe of Manessa. So these things are coming to them right as judgment. What is that? Jeremiah 15, for such as to death, such as to the sword, and so on and so forth. Okay, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said that while the protesters' complaints and demands were legitimate, because they are truly complaining about something, this is what they're saying there: violence and vandalism that threaten citizen tranquility would not be tolerated. He wrote on X that the prolonged blackouts had understandably caused distress, blaming them on the U.S. blockade that he characterized as having cruelly intensified in recent months. The protest came hours after the government in Havana confirmed that talks with the U.S. to seek solutions through dialogue to the two countries' differences were underway. All right. Diaz-Canel said in a national broadcast on Friday that no fuel had entered the country in 3 months as a result of the U.S. oil blockade. Okay. U.S. President Donald Trump has made no secret of his desire for a change in Cuba's leadership. He said on Monday that Cuba was in deep trouble as he threatened a friendly takeover. All right, his words, right? Friendly takeover of Cuba, which is basically he's saying that I'm going to do to you, if I get the chance to, and I feel it necessary, I'm going to do to you the same thing I did to Venezuela. Trump previously said that one-party state would be next following the capture of its ally, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, in January. See? Since then, the U.S. has blockaded Venezuelan oil shipments, which provided for about half of Cuba's energy needs, and threatened to impose tariffs on any country that sold oil to the island nation. So he's threatened with this tariffs, pretty much a penalty. This is on top of a 6-decade U.S. trade embargo. And Salaki, because I think I said something about I was mentioning the Strait of Hormuz, but I don't know why I was saying the Strait of Hormuz has something to do with Cuba here. But you know that's not part of this, which I mean, you could, you might look into it yourself. But that was my mistake. I know I said that earlier. You know, because I was speaking about the Strait of Hormuz, but I actually also said that causing a problem in Cuba, but that's not what that is. Yeah, so Havana relies heavily on imported fuel for electricity generation, which we talked about, and the oil blockade has brought Cuba's beleaguered economy close to collapse. The crisis has affected rubbish collection, emergency hospital wards, public transport, and education. All right, and at this point, we could probably the article is short there. We'll hit the video to make the point. We have another video as well. It's actually very low. But this is them protesting against their current situation. And you know, their president, or whatever you call him, I think it's president, said he understands, you know, what they're complaining about and why they're protesting. But, you know, as we read, he's not going to, you know, put up with the vandalism and all these different things. But, you know, these are I mean, signs of the times of the end. That's why we're going into it. As a matter of fact, let's start over here. And probably Matthew. So wasn't going to get it, but let's get Matthew 24 and we'll link it. Matthew 24. Okay. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet, because things are going to progressively get worse and worse and worse in this time period we're living in, which is known as Jacob's trouble, the worst time period known to all men. Jeremiah 30:7, Jacob's trouble. Daniel 12, I believe is verse 1, where it's going to be so bad, Michael the archangel is going to have to stand up, that great prince for the people, which those people are Israelites, but amongst those Israelites, he's only talking about the elect. The angels are only going to fight for the elect. Okay, the standards are only going to be lifted for the elect. Spiritual powers are only going to go to the elect men. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And part of what we read here in the article is part of what's happening here. And then it goes on to say, all these are the beginning of sorrows. Okay, so I want to jump right to it. Sedition among men. Judges 15 and 14. Woe to the world, destruction to the world, and them that dwell therein. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, meaning close. As he says in 2 Ezra chapter 9, the Lord is visiting the earth which he made. So the destruction draweth nigh through all the said perils of Jacob's trouble, and ultimately, eventually gets to the nuclear missiles. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And the main people that we're talking about, well, not now. Usually the main people we're talking about are these Americans, so-called American people, as it says in Isaiah 19. Okay, I would say the Egyptians against the Egyptians, but here is still a part of prophecy in another location. Okay, because protests are constantly happening in different places. We're just pinpointing this one now. All right, in Cuba. So they're protesting in Cuba about the current situation of their dwindling economy, lack of power, food, you know, medicine and things of that nature. So for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And that's what you see taking place in that video, or in these videos. They're standing up and taking a course of action because things are not going the way that they needed to from their government. Okay, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Okay, and this is what's going on right here. Okay, so just a quick one. All right, sedition among men. Okay, more protests are sure to be on the way. You know, when the time of Jacob's trouble, and things are going to get worse. Okay, so you know the message is always to the Israelites to repent As we mentioned, for the third time now, those Cubans are the tribe of Manasseh. Okay, and so how many over there actually heard the gospel and repented? All right, versus those that you see like the ones in this video. So we're gonna leave it at that. I will you edify. Shalom.